Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. It's week 17. I'm Patrick Daugherty. That's Denny Carter. That's Patrick Kerrane. That's Kyle Dvorchak. We'll be talking every game during this fantasy finals week, except, of course, Titans Cowboys, which we hope regaled you Thursday evening with Josh Dobbs and Malik Davis. Maybe I'm sure Noah Brown probably did something crazy in that game. I'm sure it was a hell of a football game, but we're not talking about that one. We're talking about every other one. The 49ers at the Raiders. The Bears at the Lions at the highest total of the week. The Denver Broncos breaking in their new clock management head coach at the Kansas City Chiefs and so much more. But first we thought we'd talk about New Year's. And, I'm just assuming the two Pats, Denny, we're all over 30. We're washed. Not going to be doing anything on New Year's. Kyle, I'm assuming you're doing something on New Year's, right? As a 21-year-old?
So the grand plan I have pitched to two of the four friends who I have at this time in my life, the other two of whom are home for the holidays.
No, you're saying on this podcast.
Honestly, if anyone's in town, we'd love to add some more players to what will ultimately be a night of board games and maybe being in bed before midnight. I know for a fact I was asleep before midnight last year, and I have two friends who we may be, bandying about the idea of them coming over and hanging out. But who knows at this point? Maybe it's another a humble 10:30 sleepy time for me.
Playing some bananagrams, maybe?
Bananagram?
Yeah. Denny, Pat, are either you going to do a heel turn and have plans?
I want to say something as the elder statesman on this podcast. I'm 39. Listen, if you're in your 20s and you're listening to this podcast and you're thinking, I'm going to just relax. I'm going to be at home for New Year's and I'm going to be in my pajamas by 9 o'clock. Don't do that. Do not do that. You go out, you get dressed, you look good, go out and have fun with other people.
You said you get a word that starts with DR. And I was like, if you're telling me I have to, I guess I will. And it ended differently.
Have more than 1.5 seltzers, hard seltzers, like I do sometimes, and go have fun. You don't know when you hit 39 and you have a kid, two kids and two mortgages. You don't know how much you want to go out on New Year's Eve. I'm begging you, I'm pleading with you to go out for me. Think of me when you do.
This started as a riff, but it sounds like it became real about halfway through.
It's very real.
Let me say, if you let's say you're 29, you're staring down 30 in the face, and you'd like to, continue living your life. I would recommend moving to New York, a place where you can go out in your 30s, like I will be doing, not only on Saturday but also on Friday. I'm actually kind of dreading the fact I'm going to see Chromeo on Friday. Then we're going. There's multiple plans that that's still up in the air, but it sounds like we're doing like a big group thing at a game bar. Ooh. Also, a concert has been floated on Saturday. I'm not sure if I can do double concerts anymore. That'll be a real test. A Friday, Saturday night doubleheader is probably beyond me. But one on the docket for the Christmas for the New Year's Eve weekend. We do things here.
That sounds great, Kerrane.
The city of New York.
That sounds great. I've heard of New York, and I think that sounds wonderful. I mean, I think you combine that with some drinking of Pedialyte between events, and
that may need to happen.
No, the Midwest, you blow out the candle at 9:30, so it's not even an option for us here. I'm still
electricity. You guys will get electricity soon.
Next summer they said a big government infrastructure project bringing electricity to the St. Louis suburbs. But I'm just leveled. I had one of those. There's so many bars that are like game bars now. Like played a bunch of bocce ball at a bar, and I've had 3 beers. I mean that was a Tuesday. This is the first time I've been awake since then. So that's how leveled I was from the bocce and the beers. And that's how I
discovered Feather Bowl, a bocce-like game will be the featured game at this game bar we're discussing.
Is that the new pickleball Ponzi scheme?
It may have, maybe a Ponzi scheme actually, because you have to rent the Feather Bowl court, and it's a bit overpriced. And Feather Bowl, the balls are so heavy that getting them from one side to the other takes quite a bit of time. So I do feel semi-scammed by this.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you get there early enough, you can rent the Feather Bowl court or whatever it's called, and then more people will show up, and they'll want to rent it from you at a higher price, and they can then rent it to their friends.
Now I need to figure out a way to make a digital copy of this.
Well, no, so let's seek some rent, folks. Let's seek some rent. Let's seek some football. The Arizona Cardinals travel to the Atlanta Falcons in our first game of the week. Denny may have said to take the first half, take Falcons minus 2.5 in the first half because the Cardinals traveling 9 time zones, no chance they even score.
Sleepy. They're sleepy.
This is a rapid fire game where you are all only allowed to spend 1 minute maximum on what we expect in Cardinals at Falcons. We'll begin with Patrick Kerrane. He looks flustered. Give us your 1 minute on Falcons Cardinals.
Just the emphasis on maximum really threw me, but I will say the Cardinals, massive pass funnel. You know what that means when the Falcons come to town? Nothing. They don't care at all. They are going to run the same exact game plan that they've run all season. The Falcons are one of only 2 teams this year, the other being the Bears, who have yet to post a positive pass rate over expected. They go run first in every single game. They're going to do it again. And you know what? I don't even blame them. The Cardinals, they're 23rd in rushing success rate allowed. They are not good against the run. They're just worse against the pass, so everyone passes against them. That'll change this week, though. Tyler Algier, 59% of snaps against the Ravens. He's flashing like elite chunk play runner chops right now.
Yes.
He is not a breakaway runner, but he is RB10 in rush yards over expected per attempt. So, you know, some decent chunk play explosion.
He seems
RB9,
like someone who should be on the Ravens.
There you go. Yeah. He kind of, J.K. Dobbins, this version of J.K. Dobbins. RB9 in success rate. He's consistent. RB7 in elusive rating. He's breaking tackles. The breakaway stuff would be nice, but if he's getting a bunch of attempts, then I don't care as much, right? He can kind of rack up yardage, and I think he's in a really good position to do that this week.
Greg Dennis Carter, 1 minute. Falcons Cardinals.
1,000,000% Algiers season this week, and obviously I think you can feel pretty good about Drake London, even though, like Kerrane said, they're not going to lean into the pass here. That's okay, because Drake London has been getting so much of the air yards, so much of the target share.
3 straight games of 6 catches for 70 yards.
And that's and if you adjust for Arthur Smith's offense, that comes out to 15 catches for 280 yards in a normal offense.
He's actually surpassed Justin Jefferson as the adjusted NFL. Yeah,
that's right.
Leader.
Listen, I wanted to mention, I am legally obliged to mention that Trace McSorley, like me, is Dvorchak. Okay, we're back to Greg Dortch.
Well, it is Colt McCoy, just to set the record fully straight, though.
And Colt McCoy's starting. But you know what? Colt McCoy can also be Dvorchak.
Denny Carter, like Trace McSorley, in shambles.
Now, they were all Dortch pill. I don't know how they got off the Dortch pill.
So basically, Dortch wasn't playing for a while, and no one really knew why. Last week was different. 79% route rate. He ran almost every route from the slot. 10 catches on 11 targets. So I think that he is like a deep league option. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was, Colt
McCoy is starting this week, of course, yes.
Which I knew.
He did know.
Coming into the podcast.
Kerrane and Denny both went way over. Kyle, 1 minute. Falcons Cardinals.
Well, I don't know if you've heard, but Colt McCoy is starting this week, and he clears concussion protocol as of Wednesday, I believe. So he's playing, and that, although Colt McCoy, I will not say too many positive things about him, but the one positive thing I can say is that he is not Trace McSorley because of 56 quarterbacks with at least 50 dropbacks this year. Trace McSorley ranks 54th in EPA per play, 56th in success rate, and 54th in completion percentage over expected. McCoy is not good necessarily by those metrics, 47th again, respectively. 27th, though, in CPOE. Like, he's accurate. He just doesn't accomplish a lot with his accuracy. His pea shooter hits the target. It just doesn't really result in like points. But the fact that you can have DeAndre Hopkins last week go out and see his usual 10 targets and catch one of them for, I recall, 4 yards, like that will be the difference. He'll now catch 7 of them for 65 yards, maybe a touchdown involved, maybe not. So now that we have Colt McCoy back under center, feel free to fire up your Marquise Browns, who was like limited in his snaps because of being late to a meeting or something. I assume that's over with now. And DeAndre Hopkins, because he sees 10 targets like it's nothing. So fire those guys up because Colt McCoy is back under center. Hooray.
As we knew, as all of us knew.
Everyone knew. Trace McSorley will probably get a Streveler type package, by the way. Denny, if it's 1 p.m. Eastern when this game kicks off in Atlanta, what is it on the Cardinals body clocks?
It's 3:00 in the morning on Friday. And so we have to keep that, we have to take that into account. These guys are going to be sleepy as hell.
This is brutal. Also, the day after it's New Year's Day, so God only knows what they're doing Saturday night.
Oh,
already been eliminated from the playoffs. So the coach, whatever. Who cares? Yeah. Who cares about this next game, which is Nick Foles at the New York Football Giants? A total of 38. Giants are 6-point home favorites. Kyle Dvorchak, what do we need to know about Colts at Giants?
Daniel Jones is as he has been all season, but even more so now than ever, really being coddled, but it's kind of working out for him. His time to throw was over 3 in 8 of his 10 games to start the year. In the past 5 weeks, it's peaked at 2.85. They're just getting the ball out fast, and they're actually passing at a higher rate than over expected than they were at the start of the season. It used to be negative 7% in the past 5 weeks. It's up to 0, neutral. So they're passing more than they used to relative to what we'd expect. They're doing it quickly, and his ADOT, Daniel Jones' ADOT, is down by just under a yard, and his CPOE, his completion percent over expected, is up from 0.7 to start the year, which is fine. 0.7 is above average, above the expected, but only barely, to 3.6% above expected. And as you would expect, that's resulted in Saquon Barkley over the past 5 weeks leading the team in targets, then a tie between Richie James and Isaiah Hodgins. And then, although they're all kind of tightly bunched, Darius Slayton bringing up the rear among their 4 big pass catchers. So this sort of shift has resulted in a ton of scammy PPR points, but it really does push Slayton to the point where if he doesn't catch the long pass, you're kind of a long shot to get a good day out of him.
This scam has become so PPR. It almost seems like it has like mafia connections. Like they're running numbers. Like this is like a real big deal running out of North Jersey. And like the feds are going to catch up eventually. But for now, take the Hodgins and James catches while you still can. Denny Carter, 1 minute, Giants, Colts or something.
Well, if this game goes the way I think it'll go, then I don't think that James and Hodgins get to nearly the volume, that they got to last week. Daniel Jones has attempted average 25 pass attempts in Giants wins this season. I suspect they will win this game, and pretty easily. I wanted to mention the Giants defense, which was as of Tuesday or Wednesday was available on a lot of waiver wires. And I will stand by this. I would play them over everybody except for the Cowboys. And I know that folks are listening to this on Friday, but I want to be clear. Cowboys and Niners. And that's it. Those are the only teams that I would play over the Giants this week. At home, big favorites. They put a lot of pressure on the quarterback. They're opportunistic.
Nick Foles handled the pressher very well in Week 16.
Right. I mean, Nick Foles, honestly, Nick Foles could be sacked 8 times here.
In the first half.
That's in play.
In the first half. Patrick Kerrane, Giants, Colts.
Here are some quarterbacks that Nick Foles was worse than in EPA per play last week. Trace McSorley, Zach Wilson, Malik Willis. Notice the theme with those guys. All are going to be on benches this week somehow. Somehow we have to watch Nick Foles again. He was dead last in EPA per play, by the way, so I got to pick literally anyone for that little game. You got to believe that the Colts are just going to go extremely run-heavy this week, but even that's not fun for us because we don't have Deion Jackson. We're looking at Zach Moss, 69% of snaps last week, 67% in Week 15. Jackson's still around, but he's just not involved. And Moss isn't like Jackson. He doesn't get targeted. So we had a PPR scam with Deion Jackson earlier in the season. We have just two combined targets for Zach Moss over the last 2 weeks. He's like Latavius Murray with Nick Foles at quarterback. No thanks.
I thought you were going to say with better lawyers. I have no idea why I thought you were going to say that, but just very, very litigious.
Worse
person.
Lawyers, really.
Yeah, it's true. Very, very litigious person. Tom Brady will become litigious if the Bucs lose to the Carolina Panthers. The Bucs, who did lose to the Carolina Panthers earlier this season, are 3-point home favorites. What almost amounts to the NFC South championship game. Denny Carter, what do we need to know about the Bucs and Panthers? The Panthers, who set a franchise record for their most yards in the first half last weekend, and the Bucs, who did whatever you call what they did on NBC on Sunday night.
You know what the Bucs did last week? They did exactly what I said they would do last Thursday on this show. I said that they would eke out a win with a last-second field goal because they are the Bucs and they are a poorly coached team, and everybody just doesn't want to be here anymore.
No, they do not. Carl shouts to Carl Havoc.
What do you think Brady's got going on New Year's Eve at 45?
I mean,
A single chocolate chip, a single dark chocolate chip.
After which he will exercise for 4 straight hours.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I thought you were going to say excise, but
yeah, well, it's been a rough year.
I actually think that the Bucs being favorites here is a huge slap in the face to the Panthers. I think the Panthers win easily here, and I think that should set up really well for Chuba Hubbard and D'Onta Foreman. When they played in week 7, which was a 21-3 Panthers victory, Hubbard and Foreman combined for 181 yards on 24 carries. We know like how the Panthers want to operate, super run heavy, very conservative on the passing front. I think they will be able to do that against the Bucs this week. I don't care that the game's in Tampa. Okay, like that doesn't make a difference to me.
Yeah, the Bucs don't have fans.
I mean, come on. Have you seen a Bucs game? There's no noise. It sounds like the COVID season.
Yeah, it does. It does. They got to pump it in.
It's a down bad.
No offense to the Bucs fans.
No, lots of offense. You guys jumped off the bandwagon like the second things went sour. Anyway, yeah, Panthers in a romp. You're playing Chuba Hubbard in PPR. You're playing Foreman. I think that DJ Moore can still get by because Darnold's been efficient enough. I also wanted to mention Mike Evans is a major regression candidate. I know that folks don't love to hear about expected fantasy points, but since week 8, no receiver in the NFL is further under his expected fantasy points than Mike Evans. So maybe that comes to fruition this week.
Let me hop in because you said Darnold has been efficient enough. No. Darnold is first in the NFL in EPA per dropback. He is second in yards per attempt. Obviously, these are small samples. It's Sam Darnold. We don't expect them to hold. But do I think he could be like starter-ish level for the final 2 games and maybe a playoff game? Yeah, like they're doing a lot of things that make sense to coddle Sam Darnold. Like we talk about teams protecting their quarterback, like we talked about Daniel Jones. This team is doing it in an entirely different way. They are, like you said, the run heaviest team in the NFL right now, a 14% minus 14% pass rate over expected since Darnold took over. But that's worked out well for them so far because the team is second in rush EPA over that span. They're nearly like the Eagles, the only team better than them at running the football, and they have the advantage of having a running quarterback. This is probably the best running team in the NFL at this point. And when they do pass, Darnold gets the number 6 pass blocking line per PFF. He gets the benefit of the highest play action rate. And although play action isn't like the math bears out that it's not particularly affected by the efficiency of your run game, we do know that teams add more players to the box. I think Hayden Winks showed this last year. Teams add more players to the box when their opponents have been more efficient running. So he does get, just on the whole, play action or not, better looks against like more single coverage type stuff. So I think there are some reasons for him to at least remain not a travesty. Also, the funniest thing that I found digging through his stats is that he has a 12% throwaway rate this year. Just 12% of the passes have been throwaways. Before this year, it was 6.3. And you could tell this by watching his game immediately. The dude just cannot give up on a play. He's actually doing that now. And it's resulted in the lowest turnover-worthy play rate in the NFL this year. Again, on a small sample, but the team has done everything to make this system work. And I kind of agree with Denny. I think it'll continue to work at least this week.
I mean, might I remind that they just lost to Mr. Trubisky 2 weeks ago.
I know. I covered that game. I actually don't understand how that happened. Okay. But the Panthers have the world against us thing going. I mean, I feel, and the Bucs literally just hate each other. So
they control their own playoff destiny. They beat the Bucs and they beat the Saints. They're in.
Yeah, or even if they beat the Bucs and the Bucs lose again the next week, I think their final game doesn't even matter at that point because they just need to split. Yeah, they're playing a lot like the peak Titans from 2 years ago at this point, where they're the best team on the ground and they take some high efficiency. They make high efficiency plays when they rarely take it through the air. So like, I don't know. I'm kind of into it. Pat, assign me this game. It's also probably like geographically.
Assign Kyle this game.
Yeah, please give Kyle this game. Kerrane, I let them go far too long. Anything to add before we get on from Panthers at the Bucs?
Yeah, I have a lot more to add about the Panthers-Bucs game that wasn't covered.
Don't you disrespect these men working their heinies off for a terrible playoff loss in the wild card round.
I will note that Rachaad White and Leonard Fournette split series last week. Fournette's series were like way more productive, way longer. So he did run like significantly ahead. But I wouldn't
29 touches, season high.
Yeah, I wouldn't get too carried away with what that means going forward. I think it's like roughly the same situation. Both have been bad. and both will continue seeing work this week.
There you go. The collapsed Las Vegas Raiders host the surging 49ers. I said is nearly touchdown home underdogs. That was before they benched Derek Carr and went from 6-point underdogs to 9.5-point underdogs. There are skill player stars galore on both sides in this game, but it is 49ers fill-in starter Denny Brock Purdy, who has emerged as the most interesting Bay Area football player during the fantasy playoffs. Can we call Purdy a QB1 streamer, or does he max out as a scheme-dependent QB2, Denny Carter?
So I really wanted to answer this question by saying, yes, he can get up to that QB1 atmosphere, but no, I don't think so, because the Raiders, I don't believe, can push the 49ers in the way that it would be required for Purdy to get passing volume and really take advantage of a good matchup. He's also, I should mention, a touchdown regression candidate. He has a 7% touchdown rate and 3 starts, which is pretty high. I know it's a small sample. I'm not saying that you have to beware like the 0 touchdown game. I guess it could happen, but I like him more as a mid QB2 streamer more than a guy with upside. The Niners have the 4th highest implied total of the week, which is always good for the quarterback streaming process. And the Vegas defense is allowing the 3rd highest rate of positive pass plays. I think we should see another efficient game here. And, maybe if the Raiders can push just a little bit, we could get something out of Purdy, but I don't see it happening.
They traded for Jarrett Stidham, so they really like the guy. They gave up a draft pick for him in May. That's something a real NFL team did, was give up a draft pick for Jarrett Stidham. Kerrane, 49ers skill core without Deebo Samuel. What's the lay of the land here? George Kittle going crazy all of a sudden. Brandon Ayuk not really seeing an uptick. Deebo, they said he might return this week, but he hasn't practiced yet. Probably, especially in their 10-point road favorites. Why force Deebo Samuel to return this game? Probably not. So what is the 49ers skill core looking like right now without Deebo Samuel?
I think this is kind of a sneaky, exciting spot for the 49ers. I'm a little bit more optimistic than Denny that we do see some passing volume. Not like a ton. It's still the 49ers, but if you look at the pass rate over expected, in Trey Lance's 2 starts, they were at minus 17%. They were at minus 1%
I remember
with
that
Garoppolo.
guy.
Yeah. With Garoppolo starting minus 1%. They've been minus 2% with Brock Purdy. So it's been similar. And Brock Purdy's efficiency has been just below Garoppolo's. His accuracy very, very similar, actually slightly better than Garoppolo in completion percentage over expected. But it's like the same formula. And they get a Raiders defense that is horrible against the pass. I have them as the worst pass defense in the league because they faced a really easy schedule. So I don't think that the 49ers will be like afraid to attack through the air. We're not going to see like a ton of volume, but we're going to see like a balanced game plan, I think. And we're not going to need a ton of volume for guys to put up big games against this defense just that bad. CMC, obviously an elite option. Brandon Ayuk has been the top traditional wide receiver all season. He has a 22% target share, a 32% air yard share. He leads the team in weighted opportunity rating. He leads the team in weighted targets per route run. He leads the team in first read targets per route. He's been like truly their number 1 wide receiver. Deebo Samuel also gets used as a running back and stuff. So he's got kind of a non-traditional profile, but with Samuel out, I feel pretty good about Ayuk this week. And then George Kittle, another great spot. He had 100% route participation last week, 32% target share. This guy could be a fantasy football legend if he has another big week this week. Let's go, George Kittle. I'd also know. Oh, good.
Let's say maybe if someone's capable of instantly becoming the most dangerous pass catcher in the entire league, that maybe they should have him do that instead of a block.
You'd think. I'll also know John Jennings. I think maybe some dart throw DFS relevance. 88% route participation last week. Not just an emergency reserve either. He's at a route. He's at a roll all season, getting targeted at a decent rate when running routes. He has a 13% first read target rate, which is tied with Kittle and Deebo Samuel this season. So they've called plays with him in mind at times. This matchup is also good for him.
Kyle Dvorchak, I was going to ask you about Devontae Adams' slump and any chance he breaks it here against this elite defense. That was before Jarrett Stidham had been installed as the starter. Devontae Adams under 30 yards each of the past 2 weeks. One of those, it was like Arctic temperatures on Christmas Eve night in Pittsburgh, but what's the forecast for Davante Adams, who is slumping and now adjusting to a severe downgrade in quarterback play?
Forecast is icy. I mean, I don't think it'll be as bad as it was for you said sub 30 game, because over the past 3 weeks, like you said, terrible 9 catches, 114 yards, no touchdowns. Like that is a solid but not that surprising single game from him this year. So to do it over 3 games is sort of shocking. But over that span, his role is essentially unchanged: a 31% target share, a 35% air yard share. The X factor obviously is Jarrett Stidham, who we don't have a lot of data on, but I think like the salient data point is that he entered the league in 2019 and has yet to start his first NFL game. And a data point I vaguely remember, and I'm pretty sure I looked up to be correct, is that whenever the Patriots were winning a game by enough to bench, I believe at the time it was Tom Brady, they brought in Jarrett Stidham. He threw a pick 6, and he got benched as the reliever. I looked it up. He threw a pick 6 in 2019 in a blowout win. I believe it was a win. So I'm pretty sure that is correct. I have that story down pat.
Very interesting.
So, he's got a career. Again, these are small samples, but they check out for a guy who has not started a game in his 4-year NFL, 19, 20, 21, 22. Yeah, 4-year NFL career. Years. Yeah, 5.6 yards per attempt, a touchdown rate of 3.3%, an interception rate literally double that. So Adams will get a ton of volume. Obviously, he's Davante Adams, and even that in his slump hasn't changed. But man, the efficiency could be the Trace McSorley level of it even tanks DeAndre Hopkins type of stuff. You're still starting him, but your risk is as high as it's been all year.
Do you guys have concerns about Josh Jacobs? And again, the 49ers allow the fewest rushing yards per game. They allow the fewest running back fantasy points per game. They're number 1 in run defense EPA. But I mean, he's still almost guaranteed to get 20 touches. Are any of you considering dropping him outside of the top 12?
I'm getting a lot of questions saying, should I bench Josh Jacobs this week? And I guess my question and response would be, for whom?
No, you shouldn't bench Josh Jacobs.
I don't know. Like, I mean, I guess like for Tyler Algier, I would kind of.
I wouldn't do that.
I don't think so.
I think I'd consider it.
Yeah,
I would. He's going to get 20 touches still.
But Algier is too.
Right. Algier's going to get 20 touches in a way better spot.
I would not be surprised if Josh Jacobs still just that's just like classic too cute by half to me. Like I feel like you start your studs. Yeah, that's the easiest way, always way every week. But yeah.
But like Dalvin
What's
Cook,
the name of that
he's
character?
not close to a Dalvin Cook, right?
I'll never.
I kept him fairly high in the rankings, just to be honest. He's good.
Do you have him over Cook?
No, I don't actually. So I have him like only 1 or 2 spots behind though. But I would still start Josh Jacobs this week. You, of course, can sue the NBC Sports Corporation on my behalf then when he does absolutely.
There you go with the litigiousness again.
There you go. Both smarting from week 16 losses. The Bears and Lions meet up in Detroit in this week's highest totaled game. Kerrane, what is the 411? I actually wrote this down for some reason in Motown. 52 total.
So yeah, as I mentioned earlier, when talking about the Falcons, there are 2 teams that have yet to go with a positive passer of expected: Falcons and the Bears. The Bears have actually peaked. Their highest passer of expected all season is -5%, which is a very run-heavy number. I mean, they are committed to the run, and like we're talking about a 3-12 team. They are not running the ball from a position of strength. They are trying to like prove a point here by just running the ball, no matter what the game script is. They're now getting a Lions defense that ranks 29th in EPA allowed per rush. Panthers just ran all over them. The Bears are going to establish the run real hard. That's pretty good for Justin Fields. It's probably also good for David Montgomery. He's had a 68% snap share last week, 20 touches. Khalil Herbert was back and saw 8 touches, so he did, cut into his workload a bit. But rushing volume isn't really a concern here. I think, Montgomery will get there to 20 touches, which, I don't know. Does that make him a better play than Josh Jacobs? Who's to say? But I think at that point we're done, right? We're not really. You could maybe think about Cole Kmet, but despite the high total, I don't think there's really much going on here on the Bears side beyond Montgomery and Fields. The Lions, they're also, I think, fundamentally a run-first team. They're a bit savvier about the way they do it. They tend to be pass first on first down, which helps set Jared Goff up for success. But still, the Bears rank 28th in EPA allowed per rush. The Lions they do have a lean to the run, and I think are fundamentally a run-first team. So They should probably attack the Bears on the ground here. Maybe I'm kind of talking myself out of this being like as high scoring of a game as Vegas seems to think, but
Well, it's going to be uber chalk and DFS, so I'm kind of vibing with your talking me into some gal brain stuff.
all right,
Well,
let's go brain over to something
Bears
else.
are number 32 by run defense EPA, are they not? I mean, Jamal Williams and
I have
DeAndre
them as
Swift
28th, but
are back.
They're
maybe
low.
wrong,
You're
but-
thinking of their pass
yeah.
EPA, which they are.
Pass
32.
EPA, they are the lowest.
And aren't the lines the same way? They're bad. They're just you can't cut
stop
them in a
anything.
way. Yes, yeah, you
Yeah.
can't cut them in a way that
The
paints them
Lions
in a
got
positive
a road paved by the Panthers, so not
Yeah.
a good
Oh, you mean the playoff bound Panthers?
No, they are not a good defense, but I do wonder if maybe like they're just not that much play volume if both these teams go run heavy. And then also like if the Lions go run heavy, how do we even play that? You know, DeAndre Swift had 56% of snaps last week, but like that was kind of an ideal game script for DeAndre Swift. Like he should have been that. If you're not hitting 60% in huge negative game script, DeAndre Swift, what are we even doing?
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like you have to bet on Jamal Williams if you're betting on this this Lions backfield this week, because it's kind of an establish a run type of week for both teams. I do feel good about Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's not going to be a fun fade in DFS. When the Lions are moving the chains, he's going to be heavily involved. They will be moving the chains this week. He's seen a target on 29% of his routes. That's second in the NFL behind only Tyreek Hill. He'll be just fine.
Anything to add on this game, or we moving on?
Nah, looks good to me.
We're on to the Denver Broncos being 12.5-point road underdogs to the Kansas City Chiefs. They're practicing in pads, though, on Thursday, Kyle, getting football tough as they head on the road to Kansas City. These are two teams that's sleepwalking through the end of the regular season, but for very different reasons. Tell us what we need to know about the ultimate going in different directions bowl between the Broncos and Chiefs.
Yeah, well, Chiefs hopefully aren't sleepwalking. They're still very live for the first seed. It's them, Bengals with an outside chance, and Bills are the other.
It's
like,
true that
sleeper
they have a lot to play for, but I mean they have like not even try like this weekend.
And I mean,
it's pretty
based on the
annoying.
spread, they don't need to try to beat Denver. One thing they are trying to do is figure out other receivers other than MVS to play opposite Juju, who's
Boy, is that guy bad.
lineup. Yeah, and it looks like he's finally been demoted. Last week he ranked 5th on the team in routes. So you think, who did they bump over him? I think last week Kadarius Toney scored. Didn't have to look it up because it wasn't him. He ran 9 routes. My best ball shares, it's Sky Moore. They're finally 6 routes. At the tight ends, those guys, no. Of course it was Justin Watson. Of course it was Justin Watson, who has less than 1 yard per route run this year. They have so many interesting players on this roster. Play 2 tight end. I think their backup tight ends are interesting dudes, or maybe multiple running backs. I don't know, but instead they elevate the one guy who no matter how many routes he runs, who cares? So you can only play, as far as like the actual tight end receiver pass catchers go, you can only play Juju and Travis Kelce.
Don't forget that Mecole Hardman might finally be returning this week from injured reserve.
I doubt he gets up to an immediate full-time role. I actually think
He'll be at 40% route participation.
Yeah, I think
Kyle, the way they've been talking about his health, he's not going to be just plug and play on the Chiefs offense.
And I do think he's pretty certain to come back this week. I actually think Andy said some positive comments about him playing, but like you said, and they have like we said, they're 13-point favorites. There's no reason to force this dude to jump into the wide receiver 2 role. Even if that is, honestly, it would almost make sense at this point. If it's not going to be Kadarius Toney or Sky Moore, it makes sense for him over MVS, but we won't see that this week. You're only playing 2 of their pass catchers. And on the other side, like I wrote so few notes because this team is so dreadful, is that Latavius Murray fell to 40% of the carries last week. I believe it was Chase Edmonds' first game off IR. You need 100% of the backfield for one single player for them to be a fantasy relevant option. This team just got absolutely buried. Boat race, the most embarrassing loss of the year potentially by the Rams. The Rams practice squad. If you're not getting every single carry, every single target, not playing the running backs, Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton both, ran around in most of the dropbacks, and Greg Dulcich not practicing at the start of the week. I haven't seen his Thursday update. If he doesn't play,
Isn't Jeudy banged up as well?
I think
he's always
Jeudy
banged up.
So last week he left the game briefly with I think it was again the lingering ankle issue or whatever. Came back. And then they limited him at the start of the week, I believe. So that seems like maintenance adjacent, maintenance for a player who's not 100%, but no other options. So Sutton and Jeudy, it's supposed to be it's a game where they should pass a lot, right? It's not a game where they should score many points because of the Broncos. They don't score points. They kind of didn't last time these two teams faced. So I'm a little more on board, especially with Dulcich looking like he isn't going to play. A little more on board with the fact that, you can probably play Jeudy and Sutton, not based on their team, the way their teams played, but it's a low, it's a underdog matchup with the Chiefs. Sure, you can play them.
Well, you know, Jerry Jeudy's averaging 3 touchdowns against the Kansas City Chiefs this year.
That is true.
Some would argue he's the wide receiver 1 overall.
That's got to be 90% of Russell Wilson's touchdowns this year, I think.
It's very, very close. It's like 25%
of the toilets.
I take no pleasure in saying that Russ cooked last time these teams played.
Other than the pick six.
He did throw 3 picks, and one of them a hilarious pick 6.
He had 25 points, and he had to leave in the fourth quarter.
Imagine if the videos of someone burning their turkey in like the massive gasoline or the massive oil fire, right? But then the turkey still came out nice with the crispy edge to it, right?
That's was Russell Wilson the last time these two.
Are there videos of people burning Russell Wilson jerseys from Denver yet? Is that a thing?
Oh, I mean, I'll look it up, but I don't need to. There are. I know how the people work. Yeah.
Undoubtedly. Just do it. Free speech is back on Twitter.
The video should be someone in the store, like they didn't even make it out of the...
Dick's employees gathering around and letting the customers just burn the entire. No, it's safe. It's safe. Yeah, and it's justified. It's also justified to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. Just a reminder: if you don't have the NBC Sports Predictor app, go download it now. The contests are free and easy to play, and you have a shot to win thousands this weekend by predicting what will happen during bowl season and in the Premier League. There's also $100,000 up for grabs by guessing the outcome between the Steelers and Ravens in our Sunday Night 7 contest. The end of the season, every promo reading, I feel like I cannot pronounce contest. I get hung up on my I can't say that word.
You want to say content, don't you?
Yeah, I don't know what I want to say, but it's in my I can't say contests. Bills Bengals, guys. It's the game of the week, a potential AFC Championship game preview. Kerrane, I'm sorry we have you pigeonholed as the Bills backfield guy, but as the Bills backfield guy, tell us the latest developments between Devin Singletary and James Cook.
I kind of enjoy it. It's to get to dive in, see what the latest is. It's like a new TV show that I've started watching. No, this is kind of interesting this week because last week I think was very much a Devin Singletary setup. You got bad weather, kind of lean on the kind of more reliable chunk play guy in Singletary, but he only had a 58% snap share. Cook was at 41%. Over the last 4 weeks, Cook now has snap shares of 41%, 36%. 41% and 43%. He's like a legit part of the offense. And this is, I think, kind of more of a Cook setup where we're looking at, potential shootout with the Bengals high scoring game environment. The guy who's better in the passing game is clearly Cook. If you look at running backs with 20 plus targets, he ranks 9th among running backs in yards per out run. Singletary ranks RB 41 of 49 qualifying running backs. So I think, this is kind of an interesting week to play James Cook. Now, would I play him over Josh Jacobs? Yeah. I probably would. It's a terrible matchup for Jacobs. No, I'm kidding.
Yes, please, God, be parody. Remember, you have to clearly label it parody.
Yeah. Also parody on Montgomery, I would like.
Oh, wow. Okay, good. I actually wasn't sure.
Oh, serious? I thought
you seem pretty serious.
But
Tyler Algier was not. That's close, I think, but I would still play Jacobs.
I think Montgomery's close. I think Montgomery's close.
Yeah, I do too.
Interesting stuff in the Bills backfield. Very hard to evaluate on a weekly basis, but Pat did a good job. Denny, I asked the way I phrased my Joe Mixon question, it
made me laugh.
It's not. I won't say it on air, but hasn't been producing as. I thought he hadn't been producing. So he has no touchdowns in 3 games since returning from his concussion. Yeah. He is still the RB 19 by average PPR points in that time span, which to me then I was like, wow, just all it really means is he's been producing. This hasn't been scoring. Seems like it would be a good environment for him to finally regress back to his touchdown mean. What do we think with Joe Mixon for week 17?
Right. I mean, it is a good environment, so he has that going for him. But since Samaj P. Ryan started taking a little more of this backfield, it just completely undercut Mixon's ceiling outcomes, which we saw for a bit there when he was seeing everything, when he was seeing all the passing down stuff, all the high value touches in that backfield, and that's what you need for a deeply inefficient fantasy producer like Mixon. You need all that. He's not getting that now, so I do think that he's more of like an RB2 type play. The Bills have become one of the NFL's most extreme pass funnels, and the Bengals have really committed to the pass, as anybody would know who listens to the show consistently. The Bengals have been well over their expected pass rate in 9 of their past 10 games. So this is not obviously not a blip. Like they're all in.
Life is good.
On the pass. It always takes Zach Taylor like a month to figure it out.
It does. He's just like, yeah,
It seems to be quicker every year, though.
It is getting a little quicker every year.
So
I want to do the Kyle. The Joe Burrow guy seems like he knows what he's doing. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Go back to the deli, Pat.
I need to visit a few more northeastern delis to get that accent right.
Mixon is still seeing most of the green zone work, so he could end up kind of stumble into the end zone here. Only Jamal Williams has more rushes inside the 10-yard line than Mixon. Not that he's done much with it, but it is something.
Kyle, Jamar Chase just feels so close to an eruption. I guess you could argue he had one a few weeks ago. I think it was 10 catches for 119 yards and a touchdown. A pretty good game, but just kind of keeps catching like 7 balls for 80 yards. Like really good games, wide receiver 1 games. But this feels like he's overdue for like one of these 8-catch, 160-yard, 2 touchdown games. Any reason to predict one for the fantasy finals here against the Buffalo Bills?
Yeah, if you are correct that he had like 10 for 119 and a touchdown.
That's a
like,
spiked week.
Isn't it like nearly 30? Yeah. Oh, he only put up 28 PPR, boy. There you go. You got it, bud. So, yeah, I mean, of course, any week. This is a tough defensive matchup, but the thing that like the NFL has kind of borne out for us is that defensive matchups are only as difficult as the offense is bad with some degree of margin, right? Like the Bengals have been able to beat difficult defensive matchups, and given that they also face an offense that should be able to put up points, I expect this to be a pretty fun back and forth affair, as does Vegas. It has nearly a 50-point total, and Chase has just been dominant, even in the past 2 weeks in which T. Higgins has been back and pretty much in his normal role in terms of routes run. He has a 28% target share and a 40% air yard share. So do I think Chase in a 49.5-point total, Jamar Chase can have a big game? Yeah, I think he can.
We want a legendary game, though. We want like 10 catches for 266 yards and 3 touchdowns, what he did against the Chiefs. By the way, Joe Burrow, we're supposed to be a regression candidate this year. The yards per attempt are down almost 1.5 yards, but 34 touchdowns in 1 fewer game. The touchdown rate still over 6%. Joe Burrow is a superstar.
The analytics have once again failed.
Yeah, he is a confirmed.
Although I gotta say, I was never. Sometimes we should just take guys who are really good. You know,
I know.
Like,
I'll never. The thing is,
and also
I wrote that several times. The guy's a model breaker. He's a model breaker because he's a superstar.
The analytics, by the way, were the ones telling us that. Right? It was like, oh, the analytics are too hot. Can't trust these analytics.
No, never, ever. Any thoughts, Patrick Kerrane, on Stephon Diggs' recent slump? Slump by his standards, but so I was complaining about Jamar Chase, even though we've had a spiked week, not having any spiked weeks. Stephon Diggs has not had a spiked week in a month. 3 for 37, 5 for 60, 2 for 26 his past 3 weeks. All 3 of those without a touchdown.
You know, a great man once said, "Start your studs. Start your studs." Elite 2.45 yards per route run, even with this little mini slump here. Supported by elite target volume. He ranks 91st percentile in ESPN's open score. They're not just feeding this guy targets for the sake of feeding him targets. He's getting open, plays with Josh Allen. He's in a shootout. He's a focal point of the offense, by the way, with an elite first read target rate. So they are feeding him targets, even though they don't have to because he gets open. I wouldn't sweat it.
I think the one variable that can explain his past, but I don't think will have a bearing on this, is since week 10, which is the first time we saw the Josh Allen elbow injury pop up, they have had a positive pass rate over expected of 1%. They've become a completely balanced team, but they played in a weather game in Chicago, and I believe they had at least one blowout, which I don't care if they have a negative pass rate over expected.
This is a weather game against the Dolphins. It was snowing. They've had a lot of bad weather.
Yeah, I think that explains what happened in the past. But when push comes to shove, this is still the Bills. I still believe they will uncork Allen in this game, even if maybe it should have been more predictable a week ago, 2 weeks ago, that they would play more balanced. I don't think that has a bearing on this game. So it's Stephon Diggs country. Let's ride.
I've also noted that they have experimented with doing more 12 personnel, more, 2 running back stuff, less 3 wide receiver sets. But when they played the Lions on Thanksgiving, they abandoned that completely and just went with a big old 85% of their snaps out of 3 wide receiver sets type of thing. And they've tended to experiment a little bit with that if the matchup kind of favors a little bit more power running, but they're not changing their identity. And I think it's it's kind of sharp, right? Like they're heading into the playoffs, like they're sort of seeing if they can get like that necessary power run, alternate strategy in place for when they might need it. But this is not that game, They're going to be, I think, putting the pedal to the floor.
Last week, they definitely leaned into that, mindset of exploiting the opponent's main weakness. And, the Bears are terrible in all aspects on defense, but especially against the run. Both Singletary and Cook had over 100 yards and a touchdown. They had three total rushing touchdowns against them. There was no, they weren't even pretending. They were establishing it. The Bengals are not in that position, or are not going to put them in that position at all.
As Sal slices my honey ham to the exact perfect level of thickness, he's saying to start your studs, start Stephon Diggs, start Josh Jacobs. Yeah, and then I begin to bicker with him because I asked for a pound of honey ham and it's 0.86 pounds of honey ham. And then we get in a fist fight and it goes viral on TikTok.
That would go viral, I'll tell you what.
I mean, come on, maybe it's 0.92 pounds. I'd accept that, but 0.86. I mean, this is ridiculous, man.
You slap Sal with a slice of honey ham right across the face.
No, I have a thing of frozen garlic bread and just hit him in the face.
Oh, wow.
You're screaming about inflation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Jerome Powell.
Yeah, yes.
You call this honey ham?
Yeah, I quote, make a scene, and then quote, get arrested, and quote, can't host Rotoworld football show next week. Anyway, moving on. Missing Tua Tagovailoa, the Miami Dolphins travel to New England, Denny Carter, as surprising road underdogs. Give us the lay of the land, including whether Teddy Bridgewater is a viable fantasy final streamer.
Look, I don't mean to be offensive or anything to truthers, but I mean, Teddy Bridgewater is pretty much a 1-for-1 replacement as far as fantasy.
He is. It's inescapable.
I don't know.
You do mean to be offensive.
Yeah, this seems inflammatory.
No,
Your Honor.
I don't mean. Look at the other guy, the third stringer. He's not okay.
Skylar, we love our
Skylar Thompson. He's not as good as Tua. That's what I would say. But Teddy Bridgewater is pretty much Tua. So. I don't think we have to worry too much about Tyreek Hill or about Jalen Waddle. In week 6 against Minnesota, when Bridgewater started, Waddle and Hill combined for 60% of the targets and 72% of the air yards. Tyreek Hill actually led all NFL receivers that week in expected fantasy points. Waddle was 13th in expected points. So I'm not too worried on that front for the Miami offense. On the other side, the Dolphins are now the most extreme pass funnel defense in the NFL. I don't know if that will make a huge difference for how the Patriots operate, but I think it does make Jacoby Myers somewhat interesting. In week 1 against the Dolphins, he caught 5 passes on 6 targets for 55 yards and no touchdown. Sorry, I thought it was all touchdown.
It sounds like Bailey Zappi is set up to really blow up in the second half of this game once he takes over.
So it is a good spot for the New England passing attack, if you can call it that. Just keep that in mind. And I keep seeing, by the way, on my Tuesday stream for the NFL and NBC YouTube page, people were asking, do I bench Ramondre? And no. The answer is no. I know, because he fumbled. So the thought is
he's
fumbled.
He's had an eventful 2 weeks. I will say he's doing things that normally Bill Belichick would have put him on a Southwest flight that got canceled to Siberia. Southwest flies international now, by the way.
Right. He would usually be on the Broncos practice squad by now.
I didn't know Ramondre's stat line last week because it was a busy week last week and I didn't get to see all the games. I was really hoping I could come back and say, we finally got a long catch from Ramondre. 2 catches, 3 yards over the past 3 weeks, 6 catches for -1 yards. He really is the guy Denny says he is, which is good.
But he has long runs.
Yeah, exactly. Denny acknowledges the long runs. Just the passing part, Denny has really.
Listen, I'm holding out, guys. I want to see one day in my life Ramondre Stevenson catch a pass and not just immediately fall down. That would be cool.
Maybe if we throw him a pass that it's unclear if it was behind the quarterback or ahead, so he doesn't know if it's a reception or if it's a run. He'll take that one long.
I think we're on to something. I think we're on to something. Anyway, you're starting. Let's not get crazy with that.
No. I will say the only concern I might have about Teddy Bridgewater as a streamer, I mean, it is Bill Belichick, is also that he's become one of these backups, kind of like Colt McCoy. The second he comes into a game, he just gets injured. He gets injured not infrequently. I feel like maybe it's kind of a risk with Teddy.
I am a little worried about that. We're hoping that no one actually touches Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, please do not touch Teddy. Are we? Is it a little? I'm somewhat surprised the Patriots are favorites.
I don't. But I don't know how.
It seems like the market is saying that there is a difference between Teddy Bridgewater and.
Well, also, I think the market's worried about this Dolphins passing offense, which they've been figured out narrative. Didn't necessarily get any quieter last week, although Tua having a concussion for the fourth quarter of that game or whatever was probably not helpful.
Mike McDaniel literally said he was playing so poorly, I kind of wondered if he was concussed, and then found out that he was actually concussed.
Well, and then he talked to him after he watched the film, and he said, "Oh you need to go to the doctor."
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Producer Adam says Dolphins initially 1.5-point favorites. No guarantee that's all Tua.
All right. So Teddy's a little worse than Tua, but just barely.
I don't think it should have been such a line mover. I will.
Well, like 0 is not that big of a number, right? Because games are almost never like mathematically ending on 0, so that number like isn't as much of an importance as key numbers like 7 or 3.
Damian Harris is he coming back?
He's practicing.
He literally has been practicing for weeks.
Right.
As supposedly the injury guy, not that I understand the medical aspect of injuries. I grind the news and read the tea leaves probably more than most of us, or at least focus on it a lot. Dude, I have no clue. He literally is limited every single day.
It's insane. I've never seen anything like it, actually. I mean,
it's so Bill Belichick, though, to be fair.
It's been I've been doing this 12 seasons. It's been a long time since a guy was practicing for 3 weeks. It's limited, and there's still.
It feels like the IR window thing, right? Where we don't actually know, but obviously we do know. But limited could literally mean he was out there for a snap or two and left. But that's the point. No clue. No clue.
It's something to watch for sure. Yeah,
very much something we're looking into it very powerfully.
Breaking news here: Broncos signed Tyler Beatty off the Ravens practice squad. So I know,
man, I wish I hadn't dropped him in Dynasty.
It's a big favorite.
I have a feeling you're gonna be all right.
By the way, I dropped Sony Michel for Raheem Blackshear on Wednesday night. Now a proud Raheem Blackshear manager for I love 24-year-old rookies. Patrick Kerrane, the Philadelphia Eagles host the New Orleans Saints as nearly touchdown home favorites. I've already asked everyone else on this podcast about Gardner Minshew's Week 7 streamer viability. Might as well ask you as you break down this game.
Yeah, I mean, pretty viable. The only issue with starting Gardner Minshew is that the Eagles might not, because they do seem to, have some hope that Jalen Hurts plays.
I feel like it's smoke, which I don't know why they're bothering with this, but
if I'm wrong, but I saw Hurts was at practice today.
He did practice Thursday. He has practiced on Thursday.
So I think we have to take it with I don't know. We have to not take it with all the salt, is I guess what I'm saying.
It's a situation to monitor. Very, very much a situation to monitor. And the Eagles might just want to get this thing wrapped up so then they can give Hurts Week 17 and wild card weekend off with the bye. So there's no motivation to get Jalen Hurts back this week.
For sure. With that, there's a lot of uncertainty there, but this is a pretty interesting spot for the Eagles passing offense. The Saints do not have a pass rush. The Eagles, their big weakness on offense is that they allow quick pressures at a high rate. The Saints defense ranks 31st in quick pressure rate. So even if Hurts is out of the lineup, I think this is a pretty good spot for the Eagles passing game. Pretty excited about A.J. Brown. He's tied with Tyler Lockett for the lead in ESPN's open score. He gets open. He also gets open downfield. He has a 12.6 ADOT. That is why he has such a high ceiling, gets open deep downfield. You love to see that. Devontae Smith, also a strong bet. He's got a 1.94 yards per out run, which is pretty strong. He looks kind of locked in, I think, regardless of who's at quarterback. Those two guys have just been dominating targets over the last 7 weeks. They finished 1-2 in target share for the Eagles. Dallas Goedert has missed some of that, but Goddard has not really had that strong of target volume this season. He has a 1.96 yards per out run, which is really nice, but his target volume has not been very impressive. And if this is kind of more of a low volume passing game, then I'm not as excited about Goddard. I think he's definitely the riskiest of these options. And I do think that we probably are looking at lower volume, particularly if Hurts is out. But I mean, even if Hurts is in, right, they're trying to preserve the shoulder. I don't think they're going to just go completely nuts. Maybe they even pull him if they get up. So I think we probably do see a more conservative Eagles game plan. They went conservative against Dallas. And so I think just Brown and Smith here, right, with all the uncertainty. Also having trouble trusting Miles Sanders. He's dealing with a knee injury. He lost a crucial fumble last week. He had 5 straight red zone carries that he lost to Kenny Gainwell, and then Gardner Minshew sneaking I think it was 5 straight.
It was 5 straight per your blurb.
Yeah, trying to remember my own blurb. It gets harder by the day. But Kenny Gainwell with 4 straight, and then Gardner Minshew rushed in a QB sneak for the touchdown. You don't like that, since this whole profile is kind of on touchdowns and them establishing it.
He's becoming Chase Edmonds, who doesn't catch passes.
Yeah.
Runs between the
man. Yeah, so that's tough. I still think, he's in the mix, but it's just more risky than you'd like, given what could be a run-heavy game script. On the Saints side, they're definitely going run-heavy. Saints rank 3rd in EPA allowed per drop back. They're not going to want to mess with that pass defense. They rank 22nd, though, in EPA allowed per rush. So you can run on the Eagles. The Saints are definitely going to try. And, maybe if the Eagles are more conservative on offense, then that gives the Saints more permission to just go real conservative themselves. They're not going to get blown away like they would with a healthy Hurts. The issue, though, is Kamara has not been impressive as a rusher this season. He's special as a receiver. He's running back 3 in route participation, running back 3 in target share, running back 3 in yards per route run, but kind of needs the Eagles to force the Saints off a run-heavy script here.
He's also been losing 3rd down snaps and was complaining about it this week.
Yeah, and he was also absent at practice again today for personal reasons. So it doesn't seem ideal for Kamara. I don't know. I guess you kind of have to start him, but
he's still top 20, but it is a kind of a strange situation. Yeah, I mean,
How many touches did David Johnson get last week? If it's over 4, I'm gonna say you don't have to start him.
It was over. I think it was 6 or something.
You totally don't have to start him,
wasn't it?
I think that's why I threw out 4. I know it was either 3, 5, or 6, something in that range. But man,
we're all scrambling to look it up. But
he's
we had a blurb this week about Dennis Allen saying, I don't know why Kamara's not on the field on 3rd downs. Don't ask me.
Yeah, sounds like a great start.
8. He had 8 touches.
And you guys think Alvin Kamara is still a guy you should start?
I mean, he had a lot more than 8, didn't he?
Yeah, sure, he did. But
Chris Olave could be coming back from his hamstring injury.
Yeah.
Rashid Shaheed, best receiver in the league still. But
2.47 yards per route run for Chris Olave. Pretty wild stuff. But I think probably limited routes coming off the hamstring and
hard to trust.
Yeah. They're going to be run heavy.
They will be very run heavy. We will be very break heavy. We'll be right back after this. Download the Rotoworld app to receive breaking player news all season long. Stay ahead of the competition by favoriting players on your roster. Get the latest injury updates, player news, and much more delivered right to your phone. It's available in your app store today. Kyle, although their playoff hopes have largely been dashed, the Jets have at least gotten back their best quarterback, Michael White. Is White mostly a meme, or is there actually something to streaming him? And what does he do to the rest of Gang Green's offense in Week 17?
Yeah, he's definitely not a meme. I mean, Vegas, and more importantly, the market of lots of money betting on these lines says no, because as it opened at 1.5, Jets plus 1.5, and has moved to -2. It's clear that and anyone with eyes can tell you this, but now we have a lot of money backing it, saying it. So it's clear that Mike White makes a serious difference. Jets have averaged 286 total yards of offense in Zach Wilson's starts. That's total yards. Whoa. And they have averaged 420 yards of offense with Mike White as the starter. Man. Looking at his starts last year, that number jumps to 437. They are an infinitely better offense. They are extremely run heavy when they don't have Mike White, and they're pretty neutral when they have Mike White. They also get an extra 13 plays per game, both via pace, but also just being a good offense drives sustain themselves, and you get more plays. This is perfect for everyone involved. I mean, even like Zonovan Knight, who hasn't really been used as a runner or as a pass catcher, having a better offense is better for him too, even if it means 0 more catches. You just want potential for points to be going around and more plays. So I totally think you can start Garrett Wilson as a top You can start him as a wide receiver 1, dude.
I have him
awesome.
I have him as the wide receiver 12.
Yes. I was worried you were going to tell me you had him as like 17 or something. Yeah,
no,
I didn't
he
want to say wide receiver
feasted.
1, but like 12.
He
feels
absolutely
fair.
feasted in Mike White's 3 starts. I believe he had 19 catches for 335 yards and 2 touchdowns in Garrett Wilson's 3 starts.
Just because I think 12 is like, that's why I was wavering on saying 1. But just to be ahead of you, I'm putting him at 11.
Well, there you go. You gotta one up me. But the only real concern I have with Mike White is he's another one of these backups who just seems like, well, I don't care about my body. I'm just going to get instantly injured, and he seems to get hurt quite a lot.
Good news is he loves coming back in when he gets injured. So.
He does. He needs to learn to protect himself, though.
Okay, well, he should wear that big old thing that Patrick Mahomes wears around his midsection.
I'm sure he will be. Yeah,
put that thing on, man.
He will be this week. Denny, Kyle mentioned Zonovan Knight. Let's get a Jets backfield check-in after Knight's week 16, what can only be described as an implosion. Yeah. Told several people they could still play him, and he had 6 carries for -2 yards.
Well, I mean, Zach Wilson sinks all boats. I think that's the key to this. Thinking about this Jets offense, including Bam Knights. He's not part of the passing game, so he is going to be somewhat touchdown dependent and game script dependent. Certainly, last week against the Jags, Knight had a 20% route rate, while Michael Carter led the backfield with a 45% route rate. He caught 5 passes, mostly in garbage time. I will say one thing that's kind of weighing on my mind when thinking about Bam Knight. The kids are calling him Bam, one thing weighing on me is the Chris Streveler package. Like they want to use him. They talked about this week. We still might use him in certain situations, and that's bad. That's real bad, especially.
It feels like the situation in which they use him is once Mike White's ribs fall out again, because White's good.
I know. What I mean is like near the goal line.
I know.
Thing. Right, and that crush that sort of high leverage usage would crush Mike White's streaming value. It would crush Bam Knight's upside or even floor. So I worry about that a little bit, because I mean. Like, say what you will, like Streveler looked like he had never thrown a football, but
he was Taysom Hilling it. He had
that offense had new life with Streveler.
They got 4 first downs in Chris Streveler's first drive. They had 3 first downs on 7 Zach Wilson drives.
Yeah, so I mean, the vibes say Streveler might sneak his way into the lineup here.
Zach Wilson's he's as bad as any quarterback has been in a real long time.
Yeah, I think Knight, you have to be careful with how you value Knight this week. You probably, I mean, like, I know we keep going back to Tyler Algier. I way rather start Algier over Knight.
I think I have Zonovan as the boomers call him, as the RB33. Patrick Kerrane, what's the Geno temperature? He's been struggling. 5.4 yards per attempt over the past 2 weeks, only 2 total touchdowns. One of those games was without Tyler Lockett. The other was against the San Francisco 49ers. Some extenuating circumstances, but another tough matchup in the Jets. And we do not know if Tyler Lockett will be back, although it seems like he is trending toward a return.
Yeah, I have him in a best ball maybe finals team, so would like to see Tyler Lockett out there. Over the last 3 weeks, Geno Smith's been 29th in EPA per play. Previously, he had led the NFL in completion percentage over expected. He's down to 16th. Still, like, not terrible in terms of accuracy, but big drop off. He does now get a Jets defense that ranks 6th in EPA allowed per drop back. I think that one concern here with the Geno Smith stuff is that, like, we always kind of had to know that the Seattle's commitment to the pass was going to be like precarious or whatever, not firmly held. So we did see the first signs of them shifting back towards kind of the old Seattle. They had a minus 13% pass rate of expected against the Chiefs. They were minus 7% on first down. I think we could see them go with a more conservative game plan again this week. And, I wouldn't even blame them, right? They're playing a very good Jets pass defense. Geno's been struggling, especially if they don't have Lockett. I think they'll go pretty run heavy here. If they do have Lockett, then, I'm not that concerned. And you're starting Lockett. I think you're starting Metcalf, but, we could definitely see Smith kind of turn more into game manager here.
Kyle, Pat mentioned the Seahawks going more run heavy. Ken Walker finally got back on track with a 100-yard effort against the Chiefs in week 16. I think that happened. Is he
That's
back
correct.
to
That's correct.
Is he back to RB2 land? Can we trust Ken Walker again? It never really made sense that he was not producing.
Yeah, it really never made sense. You ranked him as RB 43. We were all a bit surprised with that one. No, you didn't rank him RB 43. He was 28 touches last week. That was second only to Leonard Fournette, as you mentioned. I don't understand a lot of life, including that. But like I said, 28 touches, the bulk of which were carries, which I thought was interesting / disappointing because DJ Dallas was clearly their third down, 2-minute drill back. And that had faded. That was true early in the year that Ken Walker wasn't getting work on passing downs. And he had finally, before the injury, seen an uptick in that role. I think maybe they worked their way back into it again. I don't see why they would go away from it. But for now, he is a 2-down back. As an underdog, you're still playing him. He's still an RB2, but I more agree with you now. I was willing to sort of call him a potential RB1. Then we saw him not run, nearly any routes on the Geno Smith drop back. So he is a ton of work on the ground, RB2.
This switching quarterbacks, the Washington Commanders host the Browns as modest home favorites. Kyle, give us the lay of the land in the nation's capital. And by the nation's capital, I, of course, mean Landover, Maryland.
Prince George's County.
Oh, the lay of the land. It's stinky and dirty. This game will not be great.
That's because Daniel Snyder stopped paying for sanitation service.
Oh man,
Wow,
that's
too
really
too real.
It's
That
I was
is
gonna say
pretty
that's too soon because I'm sure that actually has happened.
It has happened, I'm sure.
One interesting trend we saw last week, which was a trend we saw earlier in the year, is Carson Wentz comes in through 16 passes. Terry McLaurin, the intended target on one of them. In games with Carson Wentz, which I believe is 6 this year, before last week, might be only 5. Terry McLaurin goes from 16 fantasy points per game without to 11 with Carson Wentz. On the other hand, unsurprisingly, Curtis Samuel and Jahan Dotson both get a 3 PPR point boost when Carson Wentz has been under center. So, there are ADOTs in terms of Carson Wentz's versus Taylor Heineke. Carson Wentz is a lot shallower. That results, as you expect, in the Curtis Samuel and even Jahan Dotson, who isn't a shallow run after the catch guy per se, but it's just that he's not Terry McLaurin, who has one of the best roles with Taylor Heineke under center as an oft-used deep threat. He'll probably revert to a sometimes used deep threat, which, as his split show, is not particularly great for him. So I think this turns all 3 of them as usable and none of the 3 as particularly exciting. I'm still ranking Terry McLaurin as the best among them. He produced as the best, even with Carson Wentz under center, but the gap closes not by his own doing, not by a long shot. And on the other side, Deshaun Watson has been dreadful.
Terry McLaurin averaged 4 catches for 61 yards in Carson Wentz's starts, 8 for 81 in Taylor Heineke's starts. So truly meaningful. You alluded to it in the points per game, but just the raw production, quite different with and without Carson Wentz.
Yeah, not great. You're still starting him, probably.
Still top 24. He's like in the wide receiver 21 to 24 range now, I would say.
And I just have no faith that this game isn't miserable. And the Browns have been, dreadful against the run. And the Commanders, given how they've used Brian Robinson, are probably fine just leaning into that. Moving to the other side, Deshaun Watson, dreadful since he, came off his suspension. 31st in EPA per play since his first start. And it's not just like bad plays. He's just simply been inaccurate. He's
been crazily bad.
Yeah, he's 27th in CPOE and 20th in success rate. So not only are the bad plays, the sacks, interceptions, et cetera, prevalent, but there's no floor of him being like even modestly accurate, frankly. And it was an awfully windy and miserable game last week, but he looked just almost as bad as he has in all the other games. So I guess you're still starting Amari Cooper because his target share and air yard share have remained strong with Deshaun Watson, but you are doing it knowing that the offense can collapse at any moment. I think both he and Nick Chubb haven't scored a touchdown since maybe Nick Chubb got his first last week, but have not combined for 1 at most since Deshaun Watson took over. And the same is kind of true of David Njoku, right? He's played on at least 90% of the snaps in back-to-back weeks. That's tight end 1 already. That's basically all I need to do to jump into the top 12. But like the rest of these guys, it is very feasible that they go out and score 1 touchdown. And if it's not the guy you chose, you're kind of dead on arrival.
Fully guaranteed contract for Deshaun Watson.
Amari Cooper dropped a touchdown last week that would have made his.
I did see that. I think what happened is he was trying to go down with the ball and it was so icy that he slipped.
Yes.
He
How does every Amari Cooper drop has some story? It was really crazy, but there was a full eclipse at that exact moment. And that's
It's one of the ones.
72-yard touchdown.
It's one of the ones where the stadium is designed to feed light indirectly into players' eyes.
Yes.
Sometimes. Oh, there was an icy spot on the field.
He literally once had a ball. I think it was on Sunday Night Football. So NBC apologizes. Hit like a camera cable that caused him to drop like a 60-yard touchdown. There's just always some weird extenuating circumstance with him.
He had one the other week where I think it was on a 4th down too, or just hit him like square in the chest, and there were no extenuating circumstances whatsoever.
He's a strange guy. Denny Carter, the surging Jacksonville Jaguars arrived for a trap game in Houston, Texas. What do we need to know about Jags, Texans, where the Jaguars are only 4-point favorites against the so like what are they, like 1-12-1?
I wonder if there is some benching risk baked in, because the Jags gain very little from winning this game. They get like a couple extra outs to a wild card bid. But as I think we talked about this earlier, that the Week 18 is just an AFC South play-in game. The AFC South title will be decided in Week 18, regardless of what happens this week. That almost has to be some sort of risk that they at least take it light with their players.
Doug Peterson insists that no game is meaningless.
And
so we'll have to see if he sticks to his guns there. So I wanted to mention Brandon Cooks, who did not practice on Thursday, but is expected to return to practice Friday. So it might be a personal situation. Who knows with Brandon Cooks? He's not the happiest.
He hates this team.
Yeah, it is personal.
But this time it is personal. He last week he returned, ran a route on 88% of the team's dropbacks. He led the Texans with 32% target share and 41% of the air yards. That is quite a dominant wideout profile. He also had a 33-yard touchdown called back on a penalty, which is a tough break, obviously. But I do like him against a very weak Jaguars secondary. It just pretty much by any measure. So I think you're playing him as a wide receiver 3. Like I think you get him in there. If he returns to practice on Friday, I should say.
Which he won't.
And if he doesn't, then obviously you start worrying. Travis Etienne also in a great spot against the league's ultimate, most extreme run funnel defense. I was
going to say the line.
You knew what was coming. Everybody knew. Etienne has 62% of the Jaguars rushing attempts over the past 7 games. This, like I said, great matchup. The Texans have seen more rushes this season than any other team. The Texans have the highest rate of missed tackles against opposing rushers. So I just go down the line, and you can find many, many reasons why the Texans are such a good matchup for running backs. Now, Etienne still frustratingly is not really part of the passing game. That might not matter here if he gets a full workload, and we have to be very wary of this. So, keep it locked in to NBCSportsEdge.com for the latest in what the Jags may or may not do this week. I do think you have to at least be cautious about your Jaguars.
I actually do take Doug Peterson at face value. With a young team, I don't think.
I mean, they're starting this week for sure, but like if they go up early, I do think it's sort of Eagles in that way, in which, like, if Hurts starts, you're starting him, but don't be surprised not seeing him in the fourth quarter.
They could get at least 2.5 quarters. Like, I think they'll come out to start the third quarter, but I think with young teams in particular, these coaches seem very leery to like lose momentum, which is real according to analytics.
We have, by the way, we have a viewer watching the podcast right now saying that I cannot complete this analysis of Jags Texans without mentioning Jeff Driscoll, and it's true.
Oh, no. I thought you were going to say without mentioning Riley Patterson.
Well, I didn't know I was allowed to talk about kickers, but if I am, then yes, Riley Patterson's a great play. But
you just said the keyword to activate the lawyer's recorders.
Fired.
You're happy. Yeah. There you go. The Vikings and Packers meet up in one of the games of the week in Green Bay. The Packers are 3.5-point home favorites, even though they have 5 fewer wins than rival Minnesota. Denny Carter. Aaron Rodgers has been playing better in real life of late, but has not really translated to fantasy returns. Now, Christian Watson is questionable, probably verging on doubtful with a hip injury. Is Aaron Rodgers in the QB1 mix for finals week, or have we just not seen enough this year?
even in the greatest environments, Aaron Rodgers has still not gotten over that hump. You know, he played the Lions, which is just a joke of a defense. Not too long ago, he was quarterback 16 that day against Detroit. He was quarterback 12 against the Titans, a massive pass funnel and one of the worst secondaries by almost every measure.
Denny, what kind of funnel are the Vikings?
They are a pass funnel. Many
That's
are
right.
saying this. Against the Bears, he was QB 19 and QB 16. I just don't think that like this offense or his regression as a player just doesn't allow him to have those like nuclear weeks that we're used to from 10 years ago. So I don't think that you can play him as a QB1 here, even in a good spot. Now, I do think that his receivers are very interesting, especially the boundary guys. Romeo Doubs is running 80% of his routes from the boundary, and Vikings have been terrible against those kind of receivers. So I'm not saying you have to fade those guys, but Rodgers, man, you probably do better.
He feels like a regression monster game waiting to happen to me, but especially if Christian Watson doesn't play, it's just like why
That's
really
right. Yeah, and Watson, did return to practice, I think this.
No, so I have an update.
He didn't.
He was supposed to return to practice and showed up as DNP. So I think that's what Pat was alluding to when he said it. It looks doubtful, right?
I see.
Christian Watson, if you're listening, could use you.
That's it. That's a huge knock for Rodgers.
It is.
I'm kind of like weirdly excited about Alan Lazard though.
It's
a good matchup.
It is weird.
Me too. Another thing for Lazard. So Lazard gets targeted on a way higher percentage of Rodgers throws against man coverage, and the Vikings have played a lot of man coverage over the past month to try to like do something about their secondary. So I think Lazard is very much in play as a wide receiver too.
Dude, all these people, Watson's out. Yeah, if Watson's out, all these people fighting for that like 5th, 6th tiebreaker game with our Alan Lazard teams, you're looking good. You're looking hot this week.
He was tight end eligible, which is the actual position he plays in real life. He'd be a lot more
rude.
valuable.
You guys are being rude.
I'm sorry. Pat Kerrane, any change in the Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon dynamic? Aaron Jones seems a little banged up. A.J. Dillon had the better week 16 on Christmas in Miami. Or is it kind of a one-game blip?
I think it's health related. He's been limited in practice this week. But based on the way this game is set up, I think you really do want to be on the Jones side of it unless we have like pretty solid reports that he's going to be very limited with this knee injury. He's just clearly the pass catching guy, and this looks like a spot where the Packers should be aggressive. They had their most aggressive game plan of the entire season last week. Sets up very similarly this week.
And Kirk Cousins will, of course, throw interceptions on each of his final 3 drives to end the game, just like Tua Tagovailoa. Is what he was born to do. But a team that is 5 more wins is underdogs. It's very, very interesting. I'm saying I agree with it. Saying you may be fraudulent if you have 5
like they are the platonic ideal of a 500 team.
They are.
And just randomness. I mean, they're not literally a 500 team. They're a better team than that, but not by a considerable amount, not by 5 wins or whatever it is.
But I will recommend go check out some of these clips that people put together of Paul Allen calling these close Vikings comebacks. They are some of the best content that we've had in football this season. They're just joyous.
The last time I feel like you were as touched by content as the Paul Allen stuff was the Russell Wilson Subway raid.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, which I feel like has aged well to have that leave a mark aged well. I think this is more just kind of a communal joyous thing as opposed to being horrified by one man.
It's being disturbed and children awake at night. Kyle, real quick, TJ Hawkinson ahead of Mark Andrews right now. I have him ranked ahead of Mark Andrews.
Yeah, you better believe he is, boss. Since being traded to the Vikings, Hawkinson ranks 5th in the NFL in targets, not among tight ends. Literally 5th in the NFL in targets.
Wow.
He's second among tight ends in targets, unsurprisingly, only behind Travis Kelce over that span. First in air yards, slightly ahead of Travis Kelce.
It would be nice if he got real yards. He averages like 8.2 yards per catch, like a running back number.
At his worst, he's a PPR scam guy, though. And at his best, like, he can be a playmaker. More importantly, the real crux of this question is not as much Hawkinson and what he's done. It's just what the Ravens offense looks like. We'll get to, but Huntley averaging 114 yards passing in his 3 starts. It's just impossible.
We'll get to that right now, Kyle. The Steelers and Ravens meet up in Week 17's lowest total to fair. Tell the folks what to expect on Sunday Night Football, where it is at least a rivalry game. The Ravens are trying to. I think have they already clinched a playoff spot?
They have clinched a playoff spot, and they have no chance at the first round by not many. Only 3 teams do, but they're still jostling for home field advantage scenarios. So they'll play the dudes. The dudes will be out there doing.
Tyler Huntley was kind of a streamer last year. This year, not as much.
No. He is. I mean, he is not Malik Willis, but they are sort of playing as if he is, and he's giving the fantasy numbers that are not that distant.
They would throw 10 times a game if they could.
Yeah.
Right, they really do, and you sort of understand it.
And he's the best quarterback in this game.
I am so don't. Please, God, Pat, I don't live anywhere near. I know, like, my family, grew up around Pittsburgh. I don't live anywhere near it. It is not strategically, geographically advantageous to give me this game.
Sunday night. You haven't really been on the Sunday night circuit this year. So
cool. Okay, cool. It's Sunday night. Not that you shouldn't watch the game, of course. It'll be.
You will be fired if you do not watch it.
It'll be an incredible game. It's going to be awesome, and you should tune in. I just have things going on in a game that coincidentally features Kenny Pickett, who in his first few games, I thought there was something to it. He threw some nice deep balls and he had nearly a 6% completion percent over expected. Since then, it's at 0 exactly, and it's only getting worse. In his past 4 games, he's got nearly a -2% CPOE. There's nothing to make of this offense.
He came dangerously close to ruining Christmas. Let's just be real.
He was playing the Raiders. The Raiders are like, and I was tweeting out like just Kenny Pickett hate. And someone, when he like threw a touchdown at the end, someone was like, "You moron!" I was like, "Wow, you throw 1 touchdown against the Raiders, and that's all. That's the bar against the Raiders. They're like the worst pass defense in the league. I mean, it's been a disaster. They gotta start over."
And the thing is, their draft pick isn't going to be high enough. They're not even eliminated from playoff contention yet.
No.
They're very, very low odds, but mathematically, they're not out of it. So their draft pick isn't going to be high enough unless a quarterback falls to them. And there's a reason quarterbacks fall. So I don't think if you've made it this far, even if you're in the consolation 3-4 game or whatever, you should not be playing Steelers pass catchers. Not named Pat Freiermuth, who jumped back up to like 80+% routes last week after having kind of a lull. That's just because it's tight end. It's not because we have any optimism for this offense. Najee Harris set a season high in targets, but that hasn't really been his thing this year, so it's very possible that's just a blip. But he also ran a route on 63% of Pickett's dropbacks, 42 receiving yards, also a season high. And he's getting the bulk of the carries. I mean, you're definitely not getting what you drafted him for, but if you've held on to him this long, you're probably still playing him as an RB2-ish. He's not even a massive underdog. They're only 3-point dogs in this game, and it's because they're on the road. So I guess you're still playing him. You're definitely playing Freiermuth because that's how tight end is. On the other side, I mean, you're still playing Mark Andrews. I believe I still have him ranked as tight end 6 or 7.
You got to keep him like the 5 to 7 range. You just do. There's just not enough compelling players to get ahead of him. It's really
it's his ranking as a top half-ish tight end 1 is a reflection of who he's competing against. Not
he's a legacy admission to the tight end 5 to 7 range.
His dad played for tight end 1,
yeah,
and now
exactly.
But to be fair, his volume is almost unchanged. His air yards are a bit down because the offense is pretty miserable. But in the Tyler Huntley starts, 30% target share, 26% air yard share. He is still the team's wide receiver 1 by a mile, in fact. I don't think they had a receiver get more than 2 targets last week, a wide receiver specifically. So he is still clearly the team's wide receiver 1. Any tight end who you can say that for, regardless of the offense, is a tight end 1 on, in fantasy rankings, though you have to have like Kittle ahead of him. Obviously, Kelsey's been 1 all year. There's a few guys you have to put ahead of him, but not more than 7. So you're playing him.
Mark Andrews' father donated $2.5 million to have the tight end 6 spot named after him. So.
And the backfield, we got a quote from Harbaugh talking about how they're going to continue rotating their backs based on the flow of the game or whatever coach nonsense he said. We've had, since J.K. Dobbins returned, he's outcarried Gus Edwards 40-31, still a very close split, and they still have a rushing quarterback. So both these guys are like fringe RB2-ish type of guys, more so Dobbins, a little less so Gus. But, I guess, Dobbins is a big playmaker. There's some upside based on efficiency there, but no one in this backfield is going to get more than like 15, 16 touches.
The Chargers find themselves as nearly touchdown favorites for the Battle of Los Angeles against the Rams. Patrick Kerrane, take us home talking about these 2 unpredictable teams.
Yeah, the Chargers have definitely been like honestly predictable in the fact that they can't get going in the passing game with any efficiency. They've had some really easy matchups. I mean, I'm just bashing on Pickett for not doing anything in these easy matchups, but it's been true of Herbert as well. He does get another pretty easy matchup this week, and one where you would expect the Chargers to lean on the passing game. And as predictable has been that Herbert can't get going, that the Chargers have been consistent about leaning on the pass. The top tier of pass heavy teams would be the Chiefs, the Bengals, and the Bills, but right after them, the Chargers are right there as a true pass first team. They're getting a Rams defense that is very strong against the run. No reason for them to try to establish they're not good at running the ball. And the Rams are only 27th in drop back success rate allowed. So I do think we can count on volume here for the Chargers. Efficiency, kind of anyone's bet, but volume is nice, and volume specifically should help Keenan Allen. He's drawing targets at a high rate. He's got a 2.10 yards per route run that's supported by target volume. I think he looks like a very strong play here. Mike Williams, somewhat weaker, pretty strong, 1.84 yards per route run for him. He's not getting open. He ranks 24th percentile in ESPN's open score. Still, though, he is the primary downfield option. There's no one else that really could even, be reasonably in the mix there. So if Herbert does get going, and he has actually been pretty accurate this season, Herbert, he's 12th in completion percentage over expected. So maybe there's some positive regression coming eventually here. If it does, I think it would make sense for that to come in the form of some downfield connections with Mike Williams, probably some contested catches since the guy can't separate. But hey, catch a couple balls over a dude and then we get some efficiency. Eckler, I'm a little nervous here.
I was trying to spin this tale earlier this week on the podcast.
Weave it, Pat. Weave.
Okay, Austin Eckler seems to tweak his knee on the last play of the game. Then he shows up on the injury report. He's limited. They've already clinched a playoff spot. There's no reason for him to play.
Well, they're playing for hearts and minds now. This is the Battle of Los Angeles.
Oh God, that's even less reason. No one's going to be there. But I will note, Austin Eckler, maybe the preeminent fantasy football player in the NFL. Is he really going to miss fantasy championship week? Come on, Austin.
Everyone else is.
Do you care about your brand? Do you care about your brand?
That would be so ironic, especially because if he could play and he's like, nah, I'm just going to sit. Incredible.
Yeah, that would be pretty rough.
We've never been owned. We are not turning into corn cobs.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. I hope your knee's fully healthy and that's why you play. But yeah, I think that it's. I'm a little nervous. I'm a little nervous about Eckler.
The Rams, Baker Mayfield, he plays. Cam Akers is like, hey, better late than never with all my Cam Akers teams that were eliminated in week 4.
Well, you see, some Cam Akers teams eliminated me. I was literally messaging Kerrane and in our Slack, turning into the Joker as great bit to end the show on. I come into Slack and say, guys, only need to fade 33 points from Cam Akers against one of my best ball teams. I don't know if he's gotten half of that in a game this year. So I was essentially victory lapping, right? Devonta Smith had a good game. I'm like, guys, it's over. It's over. And I'm like, one touchdown to start the game, really. That's all right. Can he even top 80 yards in a game? Can he even score? And by the time I look, I'm the Joker. By the time I look into the mirror, the makeup is already on.
You're the exactly. Yeah.
I actually hurt for you during that.
Your mom.
If I could feel pain, I would.
Came home for Christmas, and it was a bit mean of your mom to put the wig on you. I know she was trying to be funny, but it was a bit mean.
On Akers, I do want to note that Chargers are 27th in EPA allowed per rush, but you do wonder if what happens if the Chargers it's the reverse game script of last week, and the Chargers actually force the Rams in a negative game script. I think Akers is somewhat fragile. We could maybe go back to Kyren Williams.
I thought that too.
Well, but it was the wrong game script. They absolutely smashed the Broncos. Also, but you guys want to talk about fantasy championship heroes, potentially Tyler Higbee. I mean, Tyler Higbee, he is just meshing with the new Baker Mayfield. The new Baker Mayfield who has an ADOT of 6.3 with the Rams. No quarterback has an ADOT below 6.4 this season.
Look what they've done to my baby boy.
No, look what they've done is resurrect him. He was last in the league in EPA per play with the Panthers. Last in the
But he
league,
was
the completion
fun
percentage
then.
over expected. He's 13th in EPA per play over the last 3 weeks. Baker Mayfield. I mean, this is good. This little shallow version of him. And
McVay season, folks.
Tyler Higbee, 3.5 ADOT. That's an insanely low ADOT. The two of them, I mean, they should count these as handoffs, but
Kobe and
That's
Shaq.
beautiful. That's a PPR scam. That's PPR
it's a beautiful
scam.
PPR scam.
Yeah, man, you get 3 yards, boom, he falls down, you get a point, you get 1.4 points. You know, I mean, it's that easy.
Kobe and Shaq. And we're Kobe, Shaq, Gary Payton, and Karl Malone from the 2003-04 Lakers. We lose in just horrible fashion in the NBA Finals, but at least we make it there. We hope you do well in the fantasy finals this week. I don't know why. Really stretching here. Really straining
Why
here.
can't we be the Bulls?
Yeah, you know, we're the Bulls. We are the Bulls. Don't worry. Most weeks we're the Bulls. I just wanted to mention that I knew players who were on the 2003-04 Lakers, basically. I want to mention you got to read Pat Crane's walkthrough. You got to read Denny's funneling thing. You got to read Kyle Dvorchak's 32
It has to be a bit at this point. You know the name. You know the name.
Danny, you should have. I mean, you titled it "Funneling Thing," so
Yeah, that was your decision.
I shouldn't have said, "Hey guys, can I write a column this year called funneling thing?"
You got to read my rankings.
Danny's funneling thing.
You got to read my rankings that I will keep updated. And you got to keep it locked to the site. Like we mentioned, a lot of big-time injury news this week, including we have fantasy MVP Jalen Hurts. So keep it locked to Rotoworld on NBC Sports Edge. For Kyle, for Denny, for Pat, I am the other Pat. Thank you for listening. We will be back later.